Welcome to the Deep Dive. You've handed us a really compelling stack of sources today. We're looking at underrepresentation in the U.S. publishing industry, specifically focusing on Black authors. Our mission, as always, is to unpack these insights for you, give you that shortcut to understanding what's going on behind the scenes with the books we read. So, to kick us off, what was the most kind of striking overall thing that jumped out from the start?
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, how deep this runs. The data shows that between 1950 and 2018, so a long stretch, something like 95 to 98% of books from major U.S. publishers were by white authors.
Wow, 95 and 98%. That's almost total homogeneity. What does a statistic like that immediately suggest about the whole publishing ecosystem?
Well, it just begs the question, right? How does that kind of uniformity stick around for so long? It's not just about who manages to get a book deal. It's fundamentally about which stories get told, which get invested in, amplified. And maybe more importantly, which stories just don't make the cut.
Right. So, okay, that's the big picture. Let's zoom in a bit. What about the very first hurdles? Before a book even gets near a deal, what do the sources say about who the literary agents are, who the editors are, and what does that mean for Black authors right at the sort of starting gate?
Well, the gatekeepers themselves are largely homogenous. Literary agents, I think the figure was 83% white in 2023.
83%.
Yeah, and publishing editorial staff. Only about 5 to 6% identify as Black. So it raises that crucial point. When the decision makers look so similar, how are manuscripts by Black authors actually being judged? The sources suggest they often get measured against this white-centric idea of marketability.
Meaning, like, will it appeal to what editors think is the mainstream audience?
Exactly, which might miss cultural nuances or different storytelling traditions.
Yeah.
And sometimes, authors get pushed into only writing about trauma, as Tracy Sherrod put it, and this really stuck with me. The painful thing about racism in publishing is the books that are not around, the books that didn't get to be published.
That's a powerful thought. The stories we're missing entirely. And it doesn't stop there, right? Let's say an author overcomes those odds, they actually land a deal. The challenges just shift, don't they?
Absolutely. You had that whole hashtag publishing paid me campaign on social media, which was really revealing. It highlighted how Black writers often get smaller advances, less promotional push.
Yeah.
I mean, you had examples like Jesmyn Ward, N.K. Jemisin, huge names, National Book Award winners apparently having to really fight for mid-five-figure advances.
While at the same time.
While you might see, unknown white debut novelists getting these massive 6, even 7-figure deals.
That's a pretty shocking disparity. Is there any insight in the sources about why? Why the smaller advances or lighter promotion?
It seems to point to this kind of disproportionate sense of risk associated with Black writers. Marketing budgets, book tours, even just getting prominent placement in bookstores, it tends to be lower. And industry insiders mentioned this chilling effect. If one book by a Black author doesn't meet sales targets, it can somehow reflect badly on all Black books or authors.
A pressure that white authors maybe don't face in the same way.
Right, they often seem to get more chances if a debut doesn't hit big.
Okay, so they make it through all that. The book is finally out there. Does it find its audience? What about actual sales and visibility?
Well, in the mainstream market, Black authors still represent a really small slice of sales. But here's something interesting. 71% of what's categorized as African-American fiction sales actually came from indie or self-published titles, often ebooks.
So the audience is there. They're just finding the books through different channels, maybe outside the big traditional paths.
Exactly. It suggests the readership exists, but maybe isn't always being reached effectively by the major houses.
Okay. And what about the big markers of industry prestige? Awards, major reviews, like the New York Times Book Review?
Similar story, historically. Between 1950 and 2000, about 91% of major U.S. literary prize winners were white. And there was an audit in 2011 finding nearly 90% of the New York Times Book Review's coverage was focused on white authors.
And even when Black authors do get covered,
the framing can be an issue. Often, the focus zooms in on race or social justice, sometimes overshadowing discussion of the craft or the story itself, which might, unintentionally limit its perceived appeal.
Okay, this is where I think it gets really counterintuitive for a lot of people. You might assume all these gaps, sales, awards, visibility, are because, maybe readers just aren't as interested. But the sources suggest something else entirely.
They really do. This was fascinating. A large consumer study found zero evidence of reader bias against Black authors. Zero. In fact, readers in the study were willing to pay slightly more for books by Black writers.
Wow. So wait, if readers are actually eager, or at least perfectly open, then the problem isn't demand.
Precisely. It strongly suggests that the underperformance we see isn't about readers rejecting these books. It's about underinvestment from the industry itself.
Yeah.
Systemic barriers.
That is a massive takeaway. If the readers are there, what does that imply for fixing things? Have the diversity pledges and the activism we've seen since, say, 2020 made a real dent?
Well, the sources are a bit cautious there. Yes, there have been public statements, initiatives, things like hashtag Publishing Paid Me definitely raised awareness. But the sense is that the change is often incremental. It's slow. And industry momentum on these things can unfortunately fade pretty quickly. Sustained structural change is the real hurdle.
So, wrapping this up for our listeners, what's the bottom line from this deep dive? It seems pretty clear there are entrenched biases at, well, basically every step. Agents, editors, marketing, retailers. The data really confirms this stark gap, right? From getting acquired to sales figures, awards, media attention. Black authors face these systemic roadblocks.
And that just leads to the crucial question, doesn't it? What amazing stories are we all missing out on because of these gaps? If the readers are ready and willing, as the data suggests, then tackling these biases needs real, long-term structural commitment from the industry. I mean, just think, what voices, what incredible books might be out there just waiting for a genuine chance, a real investment to reach the why audience they deserve.